All right, so I'm just going to talk about the comments that I sort of have here because some of them might be a little bit vague, and then I can expand on them, and that way you kind of have an idea on exactly what I think you could do to improve your paper. So obviously, this first one is constructive criticism, where I'm talking about, just the headers for each paragraph. So, like I said, I didn't know exactly where to put this. So, what I'm talking about here is each of these. So here we know it's the introduction, obviously, and we know it's going to be talking about roller bearing failure, a significant mode of rotating machinery failure, and then just so on and so forth. So I really like, sorry about that, all of the blue headers here because, again, you know exactly what's going to be going on here. So expanding upon that here, let's see what else. So really, this here is a little bit self-explanatory. I thought this part was a little bit more background information. So I don't think necessarily in the introduction is where this wants to go. Like this says, I know that, actually, I think I said it in the Google spreadsheet. I know it kind of maybe makes sense to put it here because you need some background information on bearings before you dive into talking about bearings a lot. But I think it would be better if instead of having this huge explanation on what they are, give a brief one, and then after the introduction, then you can really dive into what bearings are in probably the first paragraph of your background information. Because otherwise, I think in the introduction, you're not really focusing on what the paper is going to be about, and you're really just giving background information on bearings, where I think the introduction is more tailored to focus on really what the report's going to be about. As you can see throughout here, I just have some things that I think are going to help your paper, not really necessarily super huge things, but just some grammar stuff, whatever. So moving on. I didn't really think this figure was necessary here. I think everything that's said in that is talked about in these bullet points right here in points 1, 2, and 3. I think this matters because it's basically just, as Mike says a lot, I think you're not valuing the reader's time more than your own. I don't really think that's the best way to put it, but that's how he says it all the time. So I think that's more what that is. And honestly, I think you could probably just delete this entire graphic. I think you have enough graphics throughout. And this one I don't think is extremely necessary. Again, here's just more grammar stuff. Let's see. Okay, so I was a little bit confused about the signal processing part up here, right down here, this highlighted part in here, when what we say down here is it's not going to touch on the aspects of signal processing because it's just extremely difficult stuff. So if you're not going to talk about it, I don't think you need all of the background information that you gave on signal processing. So what I would do to fix that is just maybe paraphrase the signal processing parts a little bit more. Again, focusing on your reader's time more than your own because that's not necessarily something that's super pertinent to your report. Let's see, what's this talking about? Okay, so this part here, you're talking about how it's the benefit of very low cost of basically the sentence is confusing, but what I thought that you were getting at was the vibration monitoring has the same benefit, like the low cost benefit that accelerometers have. But then earlier on in this paragraph, when you're talking about vibration monitoring, you say that they use accelerometers. So I just think that there's just some stuff going on in there that really doesn't make too much sense. And I think you need to either remove the part where you say vibration monitoring uses accelerometers, or maybe probably what makes more sense is just remove this part that says vibration monitoring has the benefit of very low cost of implementation as accelerometers. And maybe I just wasn't understanding that correctly. Maybe that's what you were trying to say. And if that's the case, I would find a different way to word that so that it's not so confusing for your reader. Mm, so again, this might seem a little bit harsh, but that's not my point at all. I'm just really trying to make your paper better. And I know you said the analysis and conclusion were really sort of a little bit more of a rough draft. But anyways, I think basically your entire analysis part, you're just talking about how all of these different ways to monitor, um, you're just talking about them in general, not how they relate to the industry that you talked about in your research question. So I think to improve your conclusion and give it a little bit more credibility, I would refer back to all of these different techniques and see how they relate to your industry, and then that's going to give your conclusion more credibility. And really, I think that matters because that's really what wraps up the entire report. And I think the conclusion probably is one of the most important parts of the report. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I have. Really, just I would focus more on your analysis and conclusion, and from there, I think you have a fairly decent report.